That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people free quotes.
Isn't sunshine and rainbows, and isn't, everyone sees you doing so well.
For just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
So, Darren, we're going to wrap up this podcast, but the final segment we're dealing with here, we want to give people a breakdown of the different product categories that they can buy for their lawns and gardens. And I guess a lot of products might be aimed purely at lawns, and given that you are a greenkeeper, that tends to be where we've focused, but a lot of things can be applied to gardens or lawns.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Can we
Definitely.
go through the different product categories, and we can talk about individual products as well, but I think it'd be good to give people a breakdown of what products they buy and what they do so that they can then start thinking about, okay, well, what type of fertilizer do I want? Or what type of pre-emergent do I want?
Yeah, okay.
All those categories.
All right. So where would you like to start?
Well, I guess fertilizer is the most dominant one in this market, right?
Yeah, all right. Last year I was asked by some of the local lawn care guys, they couldn't get a hold of what's that stuff? Aftergraze.
Yep, I've used that.
Oh my goodness. Which is a good thing. Look,
Aftergraze is for agriculture, just saying. It's you go to your ag shop and you can buy Aftergraze.
yeah. Look, is it ideal for lawns? No, it's not. It has a percentage of lead and mercury and cadmium chloride and things like that.
Wow.
So if you have a look at the base of the bag of that, it'll have a warning label. You look at the SDS sheet, you're supposed to wear goggles and a mask and gloves and all that sort of stuff. So not only is that stuff and the dust off that sort of stuff no good for us, but we're trying, as we've been speaking about, to build that soil biology. So that's just going to wipe, those heavy metals are going to wipe those microbes out straight away. So then your fertilizer isn't going to work as hard, blah, blah, blah. So
what are they thinking when they're including those things in that?
You'd be surprised what's in fertilizers, mate. If you had a look at the ingredients, which are mainly on the bag, which are all going to be on the bag somewhere, I really don't know. So they couldn't get a hold of that. So they asked me, could I source a product that was cost effective, but still do the job of giving a quick boost, a quick green up, and blah, blah, blah.
I think I paid like $25 a bag for Aftergraze years ago.
Yeah, right. I don't know what it's worth. I couldn't tell you. So I sourced this product. Some turf farmers will use it. Now, it's another 2-in-1 product. It'll give it's a coated urea, so it has a urea component. It's
which is
also
nitrogen. Which is nitrogen.
That's correct. Yeah, it will feed the leaf. So it has a little bit of sustained release, but a slow release, but it'll also have a boost. It's coated with carbon and kelp and things like that as well. So again, it's leading back to that 2-in-1 fertilizer. So that proved incredibly popular for those guys. So the guys, they'd pull up out the front of the shop out here, they'd go straight through back out to the warehouse, grab me trolley, put their things on it, put their fertilizer on it, and off they'd go. Very cost effective. So for all the commercial guys, they get their 10% discount. So we've got a homeowner's price and a retail and a tradies price.
Yep, awesome.
So that was one. It lasts about 6 weeks, so it's not a true slow release. But it was good for you guys and for the commercial guys, where their customers can see an instant hit in about 3 or 4 days.
Yep, and you do 10 to 12 applications a year.
Yeah, well, it depends on for their clients, they might have been happy to do their 2 or 3 applications over summertime.
Honestly, with a lot of those sort of products, it's a way of extending the season by an extra few weeks or bringing the season on a little bit earlier.
Absolutely, it is, and that's the whole idea. If you
So
can,
one or two applications a year is typical for people using that sort of product.
if you can, generally, what I have recommended is the guys use a renovation fertilizer in September, and that's to wake the lawns up, wake them up really hard. So your renovation fertilizer is going to have more immediate over slow release, and that's to get them out of winter bank, so you guys can start cutting straight away.
Yeah.
And then at the other end of the scale in autumn and Anzac Day, that's where you use a nice slow release. So that was that product, and it worked really well for them. We've got another product called MP Spectrum, and that by far and away is our biggest seller, by the stretch, by the length of Flemington Strait. It's a 22 and 5 MPK, and the granules are coated with carbon, microbes, bacteria, essential fungi, things like that, humic acid, fulvic acid, so that to get back that synergy where when everything breaks down, you're going to get the best out of it. So that's MP Spectrum. That's pretty much the other one the contractors use because it's a slow release, 8 to 10 weeks. Easy.
And of course, if people have very specific needs, they got high-end customers, then they might move to using some of the other Greenkeeper style products that are available. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, MP Spectrum is pretty good, but then you've got absolutely. It comes back down to what their customer asks for. They wanted extra green. All right. So what they will do, they will put those whatever fertilizers they want to put on there. That out of the probably dozen that I have there, to do specific jobs, but then they'll go out monthly with a product we have here called Enhance.
Yeah.
Enhance is 12% nitrogen and 10% iron and 1% magnesium. So that will give you an incredibly dark green boost within about 3 or 4 days.
Yep.
So if you were having a soiree at your place, a party, on a Saturday night or Saturday, you would go out on the Monday or Tuesday, spray Enhance on the foliage, leave it there to dry, and by Thursday, Friday, it's glowing. So it depends on what their customers are after.
Yeah.
Do they want that? They want that intense green all the way along. So all the way up to, we've got a specific fertilizer there for Tiftuff. Tiftuff doesn't like extra nitrogen. So it's only 16, I think it's 16,110 NPK.
Now, on the nitrogen there, I heard this from somebody else I spoke to, but if you have a dog in your backyard and you see a dead spot where the dog pees, that's a good indication that the nitrogen in the dog pee is too much for the grass.
Correct. So
if you don't see a dead spot where your dog pees, then it means you've got a nitrogen deficiency in your lawn. No?
Oh, look, you could be right. When I've asked multiple vets about it, and it comes down to their diet and how their liver and kidneys and whatnot break things down. So basically, those patches in the lawn are from is the ammonia content in the urine. It's like you've got a handful of sulfate of ammonia or urea and just put a handful on the grass and you've burned it. So that's what you're doing. It's a toxic overload of that area.
Yep.
So, but how it relates to the existing nutrient level and nitrogen level in the soil, I'm not sure, mate.
So that's a maybe not. Could be a good wives' tale.
I'll write that down. Check out. So the other end of the scale, I've got a product that I used to use on the greens. When I mentioned there before, at renovation, we'd need to get them back really quick. Yeah. Well, I call it dynamite in a bag. It's 3118, and, mate, it will give you the biggest, fastest response you've ever seen.
Okay.
So really depends. That's a 12-week duration. So,
nice.
So fertilizers, liquids, granulars, depending on what you want.
Now, my understanding, you can do liquid or granular at any time, and the difference is the way you apply it more than the effect it has necessarily, except I think granular will probably give you a better slow release than a liquid.
Yeah, but again, as I said, those two fertilizers I had here, well, your renovation fertilizer will
Yep.
last maybe 5-6 weeks.
Yep.
The other, the platinum high end that I got in for the contractors, that will last 6 weeks. But then you start with your slow release fertilizers. One lot will give you 8 or 10 weeks. Your premium nutrition, those guys there will give you 10 to 12 weeks.
Yep.
So it all comes back down to the coating and what sort of.
Whereas when you do a liquid fertilizer, you don't have a coating.
No, you don't. But they'll also be different forms of nitrogen.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not just nitrogen. There's different forms of nitrogen and how it breaks down, slow, fast,
okay.
or a combination of all the above.
Yep.
So it can be quite complex.
Yes.
That's why I asked when a customer comes in, I ask them so many questions, what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, fair. Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars. Do you want to leave your job to create a profitable and enjoyable lawn and garden business? Aussie Lawn Stars shares the stories, lessons and advice to help you grow a healthy, productive, efficient and sustainable business. Do you want more or simply have a question about what you heard? Contact Aussie Lawn Stars at iCloud.com or look me up, Gary Ashton, on Facebook and Messenger for individual help. Business coaching helps you to have the right mindset and perspective when it comes to daily decision making, planning, or knowing what to look for to improve your business. thinktankcoaching.com.au has helped me, and they can help you move towards your business goals. Visit their website or email them, thinktankcoaching@outlook.com. If you want to establish the best practices in bookkeeping, accounting and business structure, contact Adrian from Prosper Financial on 0249 773363. And you all need to head to Lawn Mowing Contractors Australia and the Australian Professional Lawn Contractors Facebook groups for supportive communities focused on our industry. So if we move on to the next product category that you sell, so back to back after fertilizer, what would be the number one thing people are looking for?
Around here, it's the soil wetting agent and the soil organics. They're my two staples I have here on the counter through the growing season.
Yeah.
And that's my package. That's my Sandy Soil pack. The wetting agent, we sell untold amounts, and that Activate Extra with all those kelp, fish, blood and bone, all that sort of stuff in it. That's my biggest. That's my staple, my soil staple.
Yeah. Okay.
It's on the counter here. And again, you think about soil wetting agents. There's different classes of soil wetting agents that do different things. The one that I keep is called AquaTurf or MP Shield. It actually prevents dry patch.
Okay.
Then I've got a granular called MP Triple Play. It's got 3 forms of. It's a granular in a 1 mil granule that you push out with a spreader.
Yeah.
It has 3 different functions to maintain, penetrate away from the surface, and prevention of dry patch. And in a decent regular soil, you can get to pushing on to 3 months duration out of that.
So there's a difference between a wetting agent and a penetrant, but what you're saying is that this one does 3 functions. So it allows better penetration, but it also allows better retention.
Correct. Yeah, so the Triple Play does, it's the penetrant. So the idea is a penetrant, if used on a sports field, for example, draws the moisture away into the soil profile so they can get the game on quicker.
Yeah.
A retention does what it does what it's saying. And then the third one is your prevention of dry patch that actually prevents the hydrophobic soils from actually starting.
Now, hydrophobic soils is an interesting one, right? I'm
Yeah.
curious, up your area where it's sand, you probably get that quite noticeably with sand.
Yeah, it can also happen with clays as well, but here predominantly where it's sandy, it's really bad.
So with clay, I've seen it because a lot of the areas I've worked in have got a strong clay base,
Yeah.
and you might have some organic matter on top of the clay. But if you get slightly sexual with this, if you stick your finger under the grass, is there any moisture there? And this last season, for most of the season,
Yeah,
if you checked under the turf, it was bone dry.
that's
So
right.
it wasn't nice at all. And it's like, well, we've got green grass, but
Yeah.
if you get a windy day even, it'll start turning brown.
The best thing you can do for any lawn is to know what's going on. You've got to know what's going on beneath the soil, beneath the surface. So whether that's, I used to check my greens and my clients' lawns all constantly.
Yeah.
Whether that was with an old hollow tiner out of a coring machine,
Yeah.
or a bit of pipe, some way you've got to know what's going on.
I got my brother to make up a corer for me. It's about 2
Yeah.
inches stainless steel pipe with
Yeah.
handles and a foot pedal on it.
Nice.
And so you'll get a laugh out of this.
Yeah.
I can take a 2-inch core and about 10 inches deep in my lawn anywhere, unless
Good.
it's rock hard, which happens after it dries out.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's great for having a look at the sample because 2 inches allows you to get a really good look at it. But what I've found it's really good for is I take a sample out and I use that to fill a hollow section somewhere in my yard. So I'm gradually leveling my yard by doing it.
That's the way. So
And
there's a method to your madness.
guess what I do with the hole?
What?
Bury the dog poo.
There you go. Perfect. A trapdoor.
But it's a great tool for exactly what you're saying, for doing a test sample, except that because it's so large, if you're talking a really well-kept lawn, you're going to put that plug straight back into the hole. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a rather large divot.
Every contractor should have one. Seriously, every contractor should have a sampler of some sort.
You can buy something very similar to what my brother made, but I asked him to make one up specific to how I wanted it to be, and it's awesome.
So this little gadget there is one that, I don't know if you can see that, one that we sell.
Yeah.
That's from Better Methods. Basically, just packs away, put a cap on it. So that's what you've got to know. You've got to take the guesswork out of what's happening. Even if you haven't got something like that, even just get a spade and cut a nice square with a spade, even if it was, like 200 square, and just flip that over, flip that side over onto itself. That way you'll get to see, firstly, what the root system's like.
Yeah.
Is it really extensive? Then you'll get to see what the soil profile is like. Is it dry? Is it wet? Should I have watered last night?
How deep are the roots?
How deep are the roots? What have I got? Clay? Have I got sand? Should I do this? Should I do? When you're finished, or actually take some photos, write some stuff down. When you finish, flip it back over and give it a water.
Yeah.
The more you do that, the better understanding you get. Am I on the right track with my program? Should I be adding more organics? Do I need to aerate more?
Can people buy one of these samplers from you on your website?
Yeah, they're on there. Offhand, I can't remember what they're worth, but it's just called a BMS soil sampler.
Yeah.
So basically, it just comes out and then goes
straight
together.
through
And
there.
then what would that be? 30 centimetres long, I suppose.
Yeah, so it looks like it's going to take about a 4-inch sample out of the ground. So
Yeah, it's 30 centimetres, and it's
20 mil?
It's 15, 16 mil.
Yeah.
16 mil diameter, and it's
So-
like a sharp. It's got the things there you can see.
So you can see the sample clearly. Nice.
But I try and get homeowners, even if someone brand new comes in. Okay, so what's underneath your soil? Oh, I've got no idea. Well, first thing I get them to do is go home, take some photos for me, flip that grass over, and that's when we can start coming up with a regime. So
Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner.
Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage, and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages, and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standers go the distance, saving you time and money season after season. On to some more product categories of what you sell.
Yep.
Following this, I think let's touch on the insecticides, because that's, I think you mentioned one before, a Celiprin, and by the sounds of it, that's probably the only one you need nowadays. But tell me.
Yeah, look, before a Celiprin came out, we used to have to mix a contact and a systemic insecticide, and generally monthly, 6 weekly, because you didn't know what stage insects were up to, or periodically, whatever time frame it was. When they brought out a Celiprin, it's like, how good is this? Yep. So you put it on twice a year. You're saving on labour, for instance. I don't have to have guys going out spraying greens all the time. You're getting all that prevention. So the actual the issues with the lawn, the patches aren't developing.
With a Celiprin, just to get to the nitty-gritty of this, you can buy a granular or a liquid with this?
Yeah. So the liquids come in a little 100 ml bottle or a 750 ml bottle.
Now, this is not cheap, is it?
For a 750 ml bottles, around the 525 or 550 mark, somewhere around there.
But how much do you use?
But you're only using 15 mils per 100 metre square.
Right. So
that's the contractor's size.
If I bought 750 mils and I need to do a 1 acre property, is it worth doing? Because that's
Absolutely.
1 acre is 4,000 square metres.
Yeah, so it's much. If you were to use the granular, so the granulars are 1.5 kilos per 100.
Yep.
So, and you're going to get 650, a bit over 650 square metres out of a bag.
At what price?
So a bag is 190 for a bag.
190 for a bag. So you're going to need probably 6 bags to do an acre?
So there's 6. So you're up around 6, not quite.
Up over $1,000 to do an acre.
Yeah, that's right. So,
if you're doing a average residential block, 1 bag is going to cover a 600 square metre block, or 600 square metres of lawn. Actually,
that's a huge lawn.
Yeah. I've got that much. I've got a 1,600 square metre block, and there's over 600 square metres in my backyard. Yeah.
So the granular comes in a 4 kilo bucket. So you get about, what's that, 2,500, almost 300 there, almost 300 squares.
So if we go back to doing the maths on the 750 mils, if you're doing it by liquid, you said 70 mils for 100 square metres?
No, 15 mils per 100.
15 mils for 100 square metres.
Yeah.
15 mils for 100 square metres means 150 mils will give you 1,000 square metres. So you're talking 600 mils to do an acre?
Yeah, you could be right.
So it's about half the cost of doing it with the bags.
The liquid by far is by far the most economical. Even the little 100 ml bottle that I'm out of here now, so it's 127.
Yep.
It'll give you 650 square metres.
Yeah.
Coverage against a granular bag for 190. So it's 70, not quite $70 cheaper. The granular is just a more convenient way of putting it out, because you put it in your little hand spreader or your push spreader, and then you give it a water in.
Yep.
that the liquids is a little bit more involved. You've got to measure it out, put it in your sprayer, and off you go.
I guess the reason I'm focusing on the price with these is because there was going to be a huge variation with lawn contractors in terms of the size yards that they are looking after. And for somebody who's doing a new subdivision, then we're talking 200 square metres of lawn, 300 square metres of lawn. If you're talking an older subdivision where the houses are looking a bit more like housing commission and the people don't want to pay for any extra services and they're getting told it's, instead of a $200 service for the army grubs, it's a $800 service for the army grubs.
It doesn't. It depends on what price you put it out there. So when I used to when I had Lakeside Garden Care, I would break my products down. Whatever the product cost me, I would break it down into lots of 100 metre squared. So if a client had 300 square metres of lawn, they would get charged that product times 3. So if a product's costing me, if that's going to cost, say it costs $550 for that Acelepryn, well, you work out how many lots of 100 metre squareds are in there, and you charge that out accordingly.
Yeah.
Plus your margin. So whatever your margin's going to be there. So but I was charging cost of product plus my hourly rate.
Yep.
So I can't remember what I used to put Acelepryn out at, but I don't know. I'd be guessing.
But a lot of people will put out Acelepryn at a higher hourly rate than what they're mowing lawns, like probably double. Okay.
Yeah. Well, everyone's model is differently, I guess. The way I worked it wasn't. Some guys will just charge for a service or a yearly service.
Yes.
Where I didn't. I actually, because I used to carry so many products and so many different things that I didn't work on that model. It was basically the program of whatever it needed at whatever time.
I encourage my listeners to start thinking about their customers as what they're worth per year rather than per cut. So if it's a 20 cut customer, 20 cuts a year is fortnightly for the growing season and next to nothing through winter. And that means, say it's a 20 cut customer and it's worth $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
Then you go, okay, if you're going to start doing more than just lawns and you're going to start doing some treatments and a lawn package, then instead of a $2,000 customer, it's a $4,000 customer or whatever it might be.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And as I said before, there's lots of money. There is good margins in products.
Yeah.
So I used to tell the guys when I was in Melbourne running that garden maintenance division down there, you've got to put your products out. Get your products out. That's where our margin is. There's, your wage, your hourly rate covers a lot of the admin costs to keep you, but our profits and our margin is in the products you put out there. So going back to the Acelepryn, that's an awesome product, absolutely awesome. There's other products, for like the fipronil for your ants, green ants, things like that.
That's one I see a lot of that most people won't think about treating ants, but a lot of times if you're working in a garden and you've got green ants or fire ants or jack jumpers is one that I see regularly. It is a nightmare if you're digging or pruning and then all of a sudden you got jack jumpers climbing all over you.
Well, so we've always used a fipronil. So fipronil is an insecticide that doesn't have an ester. It doesn't have a smell. Yeah. So generally ants and mole crickets, things like that, are incredibly smart. If they sense danger, they will burrow far and wide to escape danger. So the fipronil doesn't have that smell. So we used to always carry that. We've got bifenthrin there. It's an instant knockdown. So some people will use that for their armyworm, things like that.
Yeah.
Then we've got imidacloprid, which is a systemic insecticide for your if you wanted to go down the route of not using Acelepryn. I've got a couple of local contractors that just use bifenthrin and imidacloprid, and they'll use that for their black beetle larvae.
Yep.
But you can use that for scale, white waxy scale. all those sorts of things.
So one I've seen come up recently, I've been listening to Muddy Boots podcast. Shout out to them if anybody wants another podcast to listen to. They talk about neem oil all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And neem oil, I think it's similar sort of thing to that. You apply it to the foliage of a plant and the smell of it keeps the insects away.
When I said before there, one of my greens at Talara was largely organic. So neem oil was my insecticide.
Yep.
So what the azadirachtin? It comes from the azadirachtin tree. The neem tree is azadirachtin.
Right.
It basically, from my understanding, it stops the insect from feeding.
Yeah.
So it basically starves to death. So I had clients, a couple of my clients here, didn't want me to use chemicals. So neem was for the aphids and all sorts of things. To stop them feeding.
Yep.
Neem oil that does have some evidence as a fungicide, not overly well, but there is evidence that it does control disease in some way.
Right.
But as an insecticide, I used to use it for ground pearl. A litre of neem oil and a litre of wetting agent on my bowling greens, and would control ground pearl.
Yeah, okay.
So neem oil is an amazing product.
Yep.
Been around for thousands of years.
Yeah, been around longer than you are.
Yeah. So
okay, so that gives us a good broad look at insecticide options.
yeah.
So do you stock neem oil, or is that
No, I get it in. I get it in for a couple of people, for a couple of gardeners.
I'll have to have a chat to you after we finish recording.
Yeah, and keep in mind, there's different neem oils. You've got your pure 100%, then you've got an 80%. You can get neem shampoo. You can get neem this, neem that. So you've got a cold press neem. So there's different forms of neem.
Now, what's the reason for having different levels of it other than charging different amounts?
They do different serve different purposes.
So it will
it's
react
like
in different ways.
A different fertilizer or a different whatever.
Okay.
It depends on how it's manufactured. Different purposes. But I always use the 100% cold pressed.
Yep.
That's what I used to use.
See, that's what I would have thought too, but I'm wondering whether it might be different whether you're using it as a foliage spray or putting it into soil.
It depends on what insect you're targeting. Like I said, I use it for aphids or thrips.
Yep.
So depending, you can use it for any insect. It just depends on where you place it on the plant or in the plant, whether it's soil, drench, or foliage.
The application I need to address fairly soon is that where you've got a high sugar content on a plant, a lot of ants will start climbing on the plant. So I need to minimise the ant activity on the plant.
So what are you finding there? What in the sugar content? Is it not from scale or anything like that?
Well, that's a good question. I'm going to assume it's from dates from a palm. So they go into the dates.
Yep. Yeah,
and then the sugar is then dropping.
Yeah.
Or whatever the ant byproduct is then dropping off the palm.
So generally, as those seed pods start to get a bit older and they go through the life cycle and they start to ferment, they're giving off sugars and things like that, which are going to bring the ants in.
Yeah. So I want to stop the ants from climbing the tree. It's all right if the ants eat the dates on the ground, but not up the tree.
So how do you get rid of that? You've got to get rid of the seed pod before it forms.
Yeah, I can't do that.
No. So
these palms are out of reach, too tall.
Yeah, so that then comes. If it were me, I'd be getting an arborist in. But if that's not the case, well, you deal with the symptom. You deal with the
it is very much a matter of treating the symptom rather than the cause.
In an ideal world, but again, we go back to horses for courses and what works. So.
But in that unique situation, it's a case of, well, let's just treat the symptom so that we can have a reasonably healthy garden.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. What else? There's a ready-to-use in a spray, a systemic insecticide ready to use.
Yeah, okay.
The Scarlet Trio over there for ground pearl and mites and all sorts of nasty things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot of people have been asking about which brand of battery tool to buy, and I don't like to recommend one brand of battery for everyone or every situation. Dealer support and access to parts and service all play a big role in that decision. Some brands have better tools for specific needs or each product category. I've been using a variety of brands, and I endeavour to provide unbiased interviews on Aussie Lawn Stars with as many of those product brands as possible. I reached out to Ego Power Plus through the podcast because of how Barry supports the industry and Ego owners. Barry has impressed me with his loyalty to customers in providing support and listening to the needs of the industry, which has resulted in a full lineup of new commercial tools landing in Australia over the last 12 months that has positioned Ego as a leader in the commercial tool space for outdoor power equipment. Visit egopowerplus.com.au to see if they have the tools you need today. Another product categories, and I'm going to bring two in together here, but pre-emergence and PGRs, and I know they're completely different products, but
yes.
but
Two of my favourites.
they're unique and things that people just won't think about until you explain what they do.
Two of my favourites, PGR especially.
Yeah.
A pre-emergent, well, let's do pre-emergent first. So a pre-emergent herbicide is generally applied early September and then early March. What they do, I have a couple oxadiazone products and prodiamine products.
Yep.
Oxadiazone, whether it's Oxafert or what's that one, Echelon Duo, will last for 3 months, and you've got to top it up after 3 months.
Right.
Works in a slightly different way, but it will stop weeds from, well, it basically affects the new plant and shuts it down.
So at the germination process.
After, pardon me, after it's germinated. Yep. So they're generally a combination. So Oxafert's got pre-emergent herbicide and a fertilizer.
Yeah.
Echelon Duo has got fertilizer, pre-emergent herbicide, and a pre-emergent insecticide in it. So that's a 3-in-1.
Nice.
So then you go over to prodiamine, which is I prefer prodiamine. So it's Spartan, or otherwise known as Barricade.
Yep.
So
that's very popular.
Spartan. The granular form of Spartan is called Onset. So it's in a very fine granular, and it's broadcast with your hand spreader or push spreader. So I have commercial guys that use both. Some guys, and it comes back down to personal preference. Yeah. So the Onset comes in a 5 kilo tub or a 20 kilo bag at 2 kilos per 100 square meters.
Yep.
Spartan is 30 mils per 100 square meters, and they both need about 6 mils of water.
Yeah.
What diamine does, it forms in the top sort of 15, maybe 20 mils of the soil, in the surface of the soil, and it forms a tight barrier in the soil. Generally, if that's there, your turf roots are going to be much lower than that 20 mils.
Yeah.
So that's why it doesn't affect the roots of the turf, because they're much lower. If anything germinates or is in that top 15, 20 mils in that barrier, what it does, it basically throttles those new emerging plants or any smaller post-emergent that are already there.
Yeah.
It throttles the roots insofar as it will stop it from drawing up moisture and drawing up nutrients. So it essentially kills the plant. So if you've got juvenile plants, same as anything, it's much easier to kill something that's juvenile than fully matured. So it will kill juvenile winter grass as well as the new emerging seed. So that's your autumn application in the early March.
Yep.
And when you put it down early September, it does the same thing, and it will control your crabgrass, crabgrass, summergrass, crowsfoot grass, paspalum,
Yep.
Parramatta grass, prairie grass, all those types of things.
Yeah, nice. So it's particularly good in lawns in that regard, but it's quite common to use barricade in garden beds as well to keep the weeds from germinating.
Yeah, Spartan will do the same. It's exactly the same product,
Yes.
just different companies. So you can do that.
Okay, you referred to both names, so that's why I just said barricade, but you've
Yeah,
got
so-
Spartan on the shelf, yep.
Yeah, that's mine's Spartan. Yeah, so it'll do exactly the same thing.
Yep.
And there are rates there, for ornamentals. So you can do that, no worries at all. And it's the same deal because your weed seeds are generally got a fibrous root system that are really shallow.
Yep.
And your plant roots are going to be much deeper.
Yeah.
That's why it'll control a lot of weeds.
Yes.
That are trying to germinate in that top section. So, again, looking back on a greenkeeping perspective, it's saving me from having guys go out and spraying greens. So it's saving labour, saving time, saving headache down the track. From a lawn situation, it's just a no-brainer. And again, for you guys, it's another income stream.
Yeah, definitely.
To do
So,
that.
so then you got the PGR.
Now, PGR, this is my favourite. PGR is an awesome product. It's a plant growth regulator. Now there are there's quite a few different formulations of growth regulators.
I keep wanting to call it a programmed growth regulator.
Program growth well, it can be on years on a program. You've got ones that will control a slow down growth on. I used to use one called Cult, and I've got it here, and I used it for Moreas and especially lily pillies. It's not on there for that, and I probably should. So let's just reel that back. So there are products out there allegedly you can use.
Yeah.
So Trinipax ethyl, I have Amigo. That's Primo. Those products.
Okay. Yeah.
So mine's called Amigo 120. It's exactly the same thing. What it will do, it shortens the internode length of the runner. So without growth regulator, your runner might be, say for instance, that long.
So this is specifically designed for turf, not for hedges.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. So it shortens the internode length.
Yep.
So it's basically stunting the grass to a degree. Which then means you get so much better efficiency from all your inputs, all your fertilizers, all your insecticides, fungicides, whatever the case may be. They haven't got to work as hard, so they're very much condensed. So instead of working so hard that it's got to get to the end of the runner over there, the same amount of product only has to go that far now. So it's supercharging it.
Yep.
The grass becomes much tighter. It doesn't have as much upward growth. It can work better. It can also help grasses in shade because it just basically it comes back to that supercharging effect where it will basically strengthen the grass.
Let me put a theory to you here, and I've said this numerous times, so I'm going to say it's more than just a theory, but you can put the polished form on it. If you cut grass daily, like you have done, then what you're doing is you're taking the vertical growth off the grass, which means the only growth that's staying is the horizontal growth.
Correct.
Right?
So,
if you cut grass once a fortnight, then what's happening is the vertical growth is becoming the focus of the plant because it's got to put all its energy into finding sunlight, which is up higher. As the more the grass grows, the more it's got to grow vertically. So that's why grass grows vertically and gets out of control, and then the undergrowth dies off. So
potentially.
If you cut it more often, you get a nice thick carpet of grass. If you cut it less often, it ends up being really thin and dies off compared to what a PGR does, which is essentially meaning that the PGR does the same sort of thing as cutting the grass in terms of allowing it to thicken up without growing vertically.
Yeah. it's if it's dying off, it's dying off for some other reason. But
Yeah.
yeah, so for you guys, I don't know if that's a good thing. Perhaps if you're on a set amount of visits per year, it might be good because it doesn't matter. You know, you're not relying on so many cuts. You've got to go back and mow. You need that turnover.
Well, I guess it does depend on the motivation behind the business, right? So a lot of people listening to this, they want to cut the grass 20 times a year or weekly, which means they might be up to 26 to 36 cuts a year. 52 cuts a year would be awesome, but that's not going to happen through winter. So
No.
But yeah, if you're gauging it off the amount of cuts I get determines the value of the customer, then who wants to use a PGR because you want to cut every week or 3 times a week or 5 times a week.
Even for instance, I use a PGR out here on that KaiQu once a month. That's my other input.
Yep.
So where we would be double cutting on a Monday and double cutting on a Thursday or Friday, we will still do that. It doesn't mean we can drop. Doesn't mean we drop off a cut somewhere or we drop back to one cut and one cut.
Yeah,
we still do twice. It just gives you a tighter sward of grass.
Well, I guess there's several factors that come in there, right? If you're using a PGR, then when you do your cutting twice, you don't have to take as much off the leaf either.
That's the whole, and that's exactly right. So if you only go back to a lawn, and it comes back to what you said there at the start of our conversation here, if you've got if you're cutting a lawn once a week compared to once a fortnight, you're keeping it nice and green because all you're taking off, you're just keeping it tidy.
Yeah.
You go back once a fortnight, you're cutting it back down, so you're moving into that scalping area.
Yeah.
So where you're some people, it's not necessarily a bad thing because you're still keeping it tidy.
Well, I go back to what I mentioned earlier in our interview. When I quote a customer, I like to give them 3 choices. So if they need to get 3 quotes, they can get 3 quotes from me rather than 3 separate people, and they'll probably choose me because that's got 3 quotes to choose from, right?
That's right.
So the benefit of 3 quotes, other than customer retention, is that you can give the customer a fair idea of good value. Do they want to be cheap?
Yep.
Do they want to be the most painful customer in the world because they want the best lawn ever and they're happy to pay, but money's no object? Or do they want to be in the middle where they get value for money, but they're still getting a decent lawn? And this is where PGR makes sense, value for money. So you're going, okay, instead of saying to the customer, I need to cut it as often as possible to give you the best lawn, you're saying, here's another product that helps you to get a better lawn.
Correct. So absolutely, the benefits of a PGR are more than I've stated here. It's an incredible product that has so many benefits to keeping a lawn looking good continually.
Some customers are going to be hard to win over in the sense that if they're looking at their lawn and saying it doesn't need cutting, you've got to help educate them that what you're doing by applying a PGR is not reducing the amount that the lawn needs cutting, but reducing the damage you do when you're cutting.
Well, that as well. And there's no set rate. Like it depends on what rate you go out as to how much it slows down. So I found for my clients that, look, I know guys that go out at 40 mils per 100 square metres. Man, that stops it in its tracks. I found for buffalo, I found 15 mils per 100 would get me a month of for buffalo. It kept it nice and green, and it was maintainable. For cooch, I went to 20 mils because cooch could handle it a little bit better.
Okay.
But I found it perfect for me. It didn't stop dead in its tracks. Most of my clients, well, I had one particularly, he was incredibly fastidious. I had to mow his cooch, wintergreen cooch, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it was 6 directions. That way, north, south, east, west, corner to corner, north, south again, and then north, south again. So I still done that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whether or not it had PGR in it or not. His lawn, you could stand a 20-cent piece up on it. It was that tight. So it depends on what rate you go out according to your customer and according to their budget and according to a lot of other things. I used to like to empower, as you just said, you give your client 3 quotes. I like to empower my client as much as I could.
Yep.
You put them in charge. You tell me what you expect.
Yep.
I can work a quote for you.
Yeah, exactly.
If anything goes wrong, you say, well, hang on, you told me that.
Yep. Yeah. Well, 9 times out of 10, the customer wants to know that they want quality, but they want it to fit their budget.
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right. Look, there's always going to be those clients that just want it mowed. They don't want any extras at all. So it depends on what they're after. So,
but if you've got a cylinder mower and people want it cut at the least amount possible, then they're probably not going to get it done with a cylinder mower.
no, that's right. So it just depends totally on the client. PGRs are a really good tool in the right volume, the right amount at the right time. For me, it was at 15 mils for cooch, 15 mils for buffalo, and 20 mils for cooch. That's what I found best suited my business.
Darren, we're used up a lot of your time here. I'm mindful that my stomach's saying feed me. You're probably getting to that point as well. Can we finish up with the last product category?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, let's just call it poison.
Poison, yes.
Glyphosate. And let's throw in a broadleaf as well in this category, right? Because broadleaf is still going to, it's just a targeted poison.
Yeah, pretty much. So a selective, you mean? A selective and non-selective.
Yes.
So that's a better way. So your selectives, I keep dicamba, buffalo, which is bromoxynil, which I'll come back to, and bow and arrow.
Yep.
So bow and arrow comes in the 500 or warhead trio in the 10, both the same products.
Yep.
I virtually don't sell much dicamba at all. There's a couple of rusted on old guys, residential guys that use dicamba.
Dicamba is so yesterday.
It is. Now, buffalo for everyone out there, it is now a Schedule 6. First of February 25, it's moving to a Schedule 7.
Yep.
Dangerous poison. So you'll need to be have a chemical applicators license ticketed to actually buy it.
Let's touch on that for a second and then keep going. So chemical applicators license versus having a chem cert.
I just call it that, but a chem cert certificate.
Okay. A lot of people get confused between licensed or chem cert certificate. And licensed is where you're qualified to use your bulk sprayer, your powered sprayer, and you're doing massive agricultural application.
Yeah, well, I guess so. I don't know exactly what.
Yeah, that's all good. I see it come up time and time again, and a certain contractor will call me tomorrow and harass me about telling people they don't need to be licensed.
Look, there's so much misinformation out there about that. I'm not to get to put myself out there people believe what they want to believe. If you know, you know. I'm certainly not about to get into unwanted debates.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so
let's move back to the chemicals then. But I thought it was worth touching on that there are some differences there in terms of what people are talking about with licensing.
So Buffalo's going to Schedule 7.
Yeah.
So I won't be stocking that. Anything with bromoxynil in, I won't be stocking that anymore. That's a good thing for me because my chemical tolerance of bromoxynil, if I notice when I get a new stock of bromoxynil in and there's one lid might be cracked and there's bit leaking out, I get a headache instantly. So my
So
tolerance is not.
it's not good, and I mean, we got to be careful with all chemicals, but yeah, it's up
all
there.
chemicals. Yeah, so that's why that's going, and it's a good thing. I don't really want to stock it here anyway.
Fair.
So I've got I've got 3 1 litres left, and then it'll be never in here again.
Well, I've still got probably about 10 litres of bromoxynol with MCPA in it sitting in my shed there if you want some.
I don't want any, mate. I don't want any.
I'm sitting there going, what am I going to do with it?
Mate, it is a really good product, and there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it's been superseded. Bow and arrow, to my way of thinking, will control so much more. It's a great tool, great product. Always use a surfactant with it. Basically, well, I should have said that before. We have Wetter 1000. It's a non-ionic surfactant. We used to use that. We used to get it in a 20-litre drum.
Yep.
It didn't matter whether we were spraying petunias or flowers or roses, whether we were putting seaweed on. If a product has to stick to the foliage, it had a surfactant in it.
Yep.
So a reason why a lot of the selective herbicides and herbicides in general don't work because they don't have a surfactant or adjuvant with them. So
now, people will use dishwashing liquid there, but tell me the surfactant that you're recommending doesn't have the same active action as dishwashing
No,
liquid.
it doesn't. We used to buy, I remember at my first club, we used to go down to Woolies or go across the road to Woolies and buy a carton of cheap dishwashing liquid.
Yep.
It's a surfactant of sorts.
Yeah. But I think it's a different mechanism or action.
It is, mate. Yeah, it is. Look, I'll probably be, again, opening myself up by debate, which I'll probably cop tomorrow, but I've had discussions with people, and dishwashing liquid, in its nature, it's designed to fight grease and grime and things like that.
Yeah.
My understanding is it will go to war against another chemical that it's being put against and try and beat it as well.
Yeah.
So although you might get a result with your selective herbicide, you're not going to get as good a result. So
my biggest concern with dishwashing liquid is that it's usually quite alkaline. So
can be correct.
You use a little bit of it, you may not notice it, but if you're out there doing regular applications, you're probably going to change the acidity or alkalinity of your soil.
That as well. So even with Wetter 1000, you're only 10 mils in 10 litres.
Yeah.
So you're using a very, very small amount. So people, how much do I put in? I've always just put a good squirt in. Well, that's too much. Dishwashing liquid, that's too much. It's not going to break down quick enough. Where your horticultural surfactants, and now look, there's a whole realm of different surfactants that are suited to specific herbicides and suited to like say woody weeds and other things like that.
Yeah.
So it's a broad range. I've found that to be a really good all rounder.
Okay.
But going back to bow and arrow, I won't state publicly the weeds that it's helped me with, but suffice to say, the diflunicin, the systemic component, will kill. It's just obviously designed to kill roots, but from my experience, it will knock over things that are really hard to kill. And certain weeds, without naming them, that have got a bulb or a nut on the bottom. And it's worked for me.
I know what you're saying.
But again, you've got to use your surfactant. Because those harder to kill weeds, it can take 5-6 weeks, but it has worked. But it will work. Well, it has worked for me, I should say.
Another issue with bow and arrow this time of year is the right time to be starting to think about doing your application. So I believe late July is the optimal time to get a number of winter growth.
Well, it just depends. It depends on what area you are, what weed you're chasing. Look, we sprayed out there last week, and I say out there on the nature strip for Bindi. We've already got Bindi have been out there for about 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So I've sprayed what's there. I don't want them to go to seed head. So
Yeah.
we've already done that. We may have to do another one.
Yep.
We'll just play it by ear.
So
But
typically bindi and clover, it's recommended to spray end of July or before August or very early August.
yeah,
But I've noticed both of those will become much more prevalent if you get a dry spell in the growth season as well.
like clover also has is a can be a symptom of low nutrition as well.
I've heard that.
But I've never, if I've had clover, I'd never give it a chance. Like weeds, I always just
Treat it
and I
simply.
guess that might be my background too. If there's weeds, well, there's something wrong.
course.
Just get rid of them,
Yep.
spray them. So I don't work on a calendar for when flat weeds and broadleaf weeds should be sprayed. If there's flat weeds there, you spray them. At don't matter what time of year they are.
Yeah.
That's how I've always operated. Have a nice clean surface, no weeds.
So once you move away from selectives, you start looking at glyphosate and then a bunch of stronger chemicals that are made for targeting blackberries and all your various woody options.
Yeah. So I still have glyphosate, 360 and 540.
Yep.
When used, when shown respect, the same whether it's glyphosate or bifenthrin, insecticide, it doesn't matter what it is. You've got to show it respect. You've got to wear your PPE. You've got to, if you do everything right, you handle things right, it's safe.
Yeah. Well, the other aspect there is we're talking about toxicity levels when you're talking about poisons, right? All of these things are poisons. The toxicity level of water exists.
Yeah.
So if you're comparing different things, toxicity levels is one thing and then carcinogenic is another thing. So we're getting a lot of heat at the moment because the claim is that glyphosate is carcinogenic and the claim hasn't been proven, or maybe it has. I'll pull back.
Yeah. I'm with you. I don't know if it has been proven. Maybe I'm a bit, ignorant to the fact. I don't know, but I just think the same as anything, you've got to show that they're chemicals. You need to show respect, and that's where I get so peeved off with a lot of the Facebook lawn pages. Some of these influencers or ambassadors are going out there and spraying willy-nilly products they haven't identified the issue. So you've got to show that these are chemicals. So going back to what you said, you have a look at the LD50s, the lethal dose LD50s on chemicals. You'd be surprised what's more dangerous than glyphosate.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, and we talked about bromoxynil a moment ago, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a bunch of other products there. You start looking at blackberry killer, and the list is big of chemicals that you can buy that say do not use on food crops or no one causing cancer. So it is a carcinogen.
Of course, absolutely. So triclopyr is one I have there for woody weeds.
Yeah.
Then at the other end of the scale, you've got what do they call it? Slayer, which is the non-ionic acid. Yeah. So that's does virtually the same thing as vinegar. Where it just shreds away that outer leaf. The theory, So there's that type of thing. I've got commercial guys as part of their brief and their contract with strata management. On some places, they're not allowed to use glyphosate.
Yep.
So they have to use non-ionic acid.
I had this discussion with the childcare centre that I looked after. They said, we don't want you to use glyphosate. And I said, okay, what do you want me to use?
Yeah.
And they said something organic. And I said, well, something organic is going to be an acid and it's going to do more damage to your soil. And do you want to do more damage to the plants or the soil or the kids?
And that's what you've got to do. You've got to put it back on the customer. To a degree. Look, you know, we're the professionals. We should be guiding them, but they also have to have some responsibility in the way in the choosing the product.
My solution for that daycare centre, which they approved, was I spray glyphosate, but I do it on a day where the kids are not there, and I do it on a day where it's the longest amount of time possible before the kids return.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So again, it all comes back to, we keep saying, horses for courses. Things get managed differently, and it's how you manage them. What else have I got over there? Yeah, so there's cannonade, things like that there, that if you're trying to knock over couch grass, that's another product.
So that's a selective?
That's a selective. You can use that in garden beds and things like that.
Okay.
So that's about all. I don't carry many herbicides. You know, it comes in, the glyphosate's in a 20 litre, but, you know, that's, you know, how much do I stock? Keeps coming back to how much space I've got here, but I don't want to be carrying dangerous poisons. You know, I don't want them. I get them in.
Well, I think, excuse my ignorance, but I think we've covered most of the product categories now.
I've got the plant doctors there. That's pretty much organics, organic corner.
Yeah, okay. So now we're getting into more organic feeding options then.
Different things like that. Yeah, soil amendments. They still work well within a lawn program or gardens, things like that.
Yep. And they're well worth looking at. Going back to that customer I mentioned that had 3 different types of soil profile to deal with, the clay, the sand, and the really high compost layer. And it's like when you start looking at a customer like that, having soil amendments is probably other than the aerations, the first thing you want to do.
Well, that's where your humic acid and your fulvic acid come into play, because they help to break your clays down, and you're stimulating the microbes.
Yep.
But other than that, solo sprayers, the XFE for bore water stains.
Okay. Yep.
All sorts of stuff. There's not much, as I said at the beginning. I can get anything and everything.
Yep.
For lawns and gardens and equipment, machinery, you name it. But
nice.
I think they're the categories. I think we've been all over the categories,
Yeah. Well, we've hit 2.5 hours recording, Darren, it's time to call it a day. So I really appreciate your time,
mate. It's been really good. I had no idea what to expect. It has been. It's been really good. Yeah, it's been really fun. So hopefully people might get something out of it.
They definitely will, and we'll take your chains off and let you out of the dungeon.
All right, no worries. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.